All right, so today is chapter 14 of, what is it called again? The Many Mentions. And so a pretty big chapter, this one, lots of conversation. And there was some conversation that I mentioned in the email is stagnate, page 149, stagnation is always a menace to health. And for this reason alone, it could not be allowed to remain. This was based on a conversation about Earth being occupied by a vast army of souls who on Earth lacked aim, purpose, or moral energy. They didn't help, they didn't resist, they just breathed, eat, sleep, and existed. And they're now lying helpless and stagnant between the two active streams of life, which I'm assuming is Earth life and spirit life, and are presenting a lot of difficult problem of regeneration that we have to solve. We have first to recover the use of shrunken, withered, and dried up natural channels before the slightest sign of improvement is visible. So, why do you feel the souls create so much trouble for themselves and for Earth people? And why? What is it about stagnation that makes it so harmful? Let's see if we have some ideas about that. Okay.
I feel like it's going against all of God's laws. Like stagnation goes against like all the laws for change and for somebody, and they're all, I feel, designed to engage our desire, to teach us how to lovingly use our desire. So
Okay.
these people haven't used their desire, like they haven't learned how to use their desire, whereas where it says that ignorance and wrongly directed energy are simple cases of spiritual treatment, so they're more easy to reverse.
Yes.
But these people, because they haven't engaged their desire, they've just drifted along with whatever happens. Yeah. It's very hard to get them to make a decision either way. And because the spirits will always respect their free will, they're not using their will in any way. They're just kind of almost asleep. And so they're having to try and then wake them up. But they have to wait for them to have some kind of desire or will to wake up, but they can't force them to. So that's why it's so difficult. Whereas at least somebody who's actively doing something really evil or things, you can engage with them and you can get them to see they're using their will differently. But these people don't even want to use it, it seems.
Which is in a sense is also kind of a will, isn't it? It's a will to not.
Yeah, it's a will to not use it. Like you almost say, I've got free will, but I'm just gonna drift along and not use. And I feel like because that goes against all of God's laws.
Yeah, because God's laws are based on desire. Is that what that?
Yeah, and change. Everything in the universe changes. All of God's laws are built on change. Nothing, I feel, stagnant, to remain stagnant is a sin. And that's why it's saying health problems develop and any kind of stagnation anywhere. Even if you look at nature, when things stagnate, like nothing's stagnant in nature, nothing. Even rocks, like it may look like not much is happening, but over time something does happen. But like if there's stagnant water, you start to get, algae and stuff build up, like things are supposed to move.
Well, I'm just thinking like in medicine, in Chinese medicine, we have like the first layer is always like your qi is blocked or your qi is suppressed, which is kind of like, oh, that's a problem. Qi stagnation is the phrase. And then you try to fix it. And then at some point we go, oh no, this has now gone into blood stagnation. So now it's gone even deeper. And there's more concern that that stagnation is heavier, it's bigger diseases, it's harder to cure once it gets lower. So I'm kind of seeing it as an analogy of like that kind of stagnation is dangerous to the health, like you die from it. And so, okay. And I wonder if, because they're resisting change, there must be some fears involved. Could that be what it is? That why wouldn't you want to change? Isn't that because you're afraid?
Or you don't have any incentive to, like you've got to see a benefit to
Oh,
change.
incentive. Okay, incentive to change. Or you could also have a sense of like a kind of like a stubbornness of like, well, I don't get what I want, so I'm just not going to do anything till I get what I want. Could be a feeling of, sometimes like if you have a little toddler who's like, well, I'm going to sit right here because I want what I wanted back there, and until you give it, I'm not going anywhere. So now the whole family is stuck having to modify, having to deal with that. Like a tantrum. It could even be kind of a tantrum. Could that be? Huh. Okay. Virginia, are you unhanding your hand?
Um, sorry, when Karen was speaking, I felt like it's really resistance, an act of
Right.
resisting,
Okay.
of resisting change, of resisting to use your will. So it is that
Yeah.
anger, is that anger and fear to just say, I'm not going to do anything.
Yes, it sounds like there's something pouty about it. There's something, it's tantrum. So yeah, definitely feels, yeah.
So it's sort of that the passive aggressive approach.
Yeah.
Right? But from reading that, it seemed that just the energy that is created by those who want to engage this, because you are engaging something, you're just not wanting to change, that it affects everything. It affects
Yeah.
that there's an effect, a negative effect on our environment and others.
Yes.
This energy. So it doesn't, because when I'm reading it, it seems kind of harmless.
Exactly.
It's not harmless. And
No,
read, you realize how it affects
I think, yeah.
because of our connection. It really is harmful.
Well, it's like what Karen said, that all of God's laws are based on desire and change and movement. It seems to be something very dynamic about it. And so us wanting to cuddle up and rest seems to be going against this flow of how God has designed it, which is very, very passionate and desirous and full on. Like I'm really getting a sense of how full on life is supposed to be lived. Like you're supposed to just take it on full on. But culturally, we all seem to have some kind of a belief around being that kind of person. Like Selena and then Judith.
Yeah, I think what I really felt there was just a warning never to minimize passivity.
Okay.
Because one of the biggest problems created on the earth is often from, it's not, as long as it's not affecting me directly.
Yes.
I can just ignore that evil that's going on over there. So we tend to do that. And then until it becomes such a huge issue, then now it is affecting us. And we go, well, now somebody should save me.
Yeah.
So yeah, so passivity, it can be extremely dangerous. I think that's what it said to me. It was a warning against it because it seems not a big deal. And so not to minimize it.
Yeah. So from God's perspective, we need to engage our soul in a very active way, is what I seem to be hearing. We're supposed to be very, very, like little kids, they're constantly doing something. They're constantly looking and investigating and checking something out and asking questions and experimenting some more and getting in trouble and learning from it.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah. And also even exploring having a passive parent.
Yes.
Right. How damaging that can be to have a passive parent, which is something I'm also, like passivity is damaging in spirit world and here.
Yeah, I also had a passive parent. So, and I haven't looked at the damage of that, which could be why I'm not so sensitive to this issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
We harm a lot of people by being passive, I think.
Judith?
Well, I was just thinking, this kind of reflects back into the earlier chapter with the woman who was blind in the spirit world and
Yes, right.
couldn't see because she did things, but there was no heart in it. But I had kind of a feeling while you were talking, and I thought, was this a spirit friend saying like, well, if you live God's way, wouldn't you just be open to God controlling your life and you doing what God tells you to do?
Bingo. That is a religious teaching in many religion and culture, accepting fate, accepting God's will, which means you're waiting for somebody else to tell you what to do. And there are lots of spirits who are happy to tell us what to do. So that's a religious induced passivity, isn't it? Ooh, this gets darker. Okay, Selena?
It just brought to mind, if anybody's watched What Dreams May Come, he goes through this dark, through going to the hells, and there's this whole area that's paved with the heads of people waiting for Jesus to save them. Like they're just waiting for somebody to come rescue them, save them. Like they don't have to do anything but wait.
Oh, wow.
It's very good. It's very graphic description of people just being passive. We were told to wait. We're waiting.
Okay, lots of wheels turning in my head right now. Wow.
It's just a very good example of it.
That's a very good example.
Yeah.
So why do you feel, or what is the harm committed by passivity? Can you guys think of some examples? Virginia?
I can only speak from my experience of having one very aggressive parent and the other one being very passive, who absolutely allowed it all.
Yes.
And when I look at that passivity, I just felt like you just don't care.
Yes.
You don't care.
Okay.
Of the harm that is being caused here, like to me.
Yeah.
And that hurt. And I really tried, then I was being raised also to be passive and just accept it all. And the religion that I was raised under also does the same thing. Yeah. And I can really see that it is very harmful.
Okay.
But I also see in myself that there is such a draw when things are getting tough, or I feel like I'm being challenged. I want that comfort. I want to hide. I want to hide within myself. I want to grab a cat, a blanket, turn on Netflix, and just like,
tune out.
Don't bug me. Yeah, totally. Just it is so strong to just want to do that. And what is that going to do?
Good.
But I know what it's going to do because I've experienced it, but yet I still am drawn to do it.
Well, because at this time, because there are all these other spirits around, they're probably the one kind of huddling with us, going, oh, let's just go away and let's just cuddle. And because I think that's how their condition is really affecting people on Earth. And I think that this passivity is about lack of self-responsibility. That's the principle too, that I don't want to have to take responsibility for doing something about my environment. That, if I'm watching my child being harmed by my spouse, I don't want to have to take responsibility of having to do something, say something.
Although, sorry, I have to say that if you are not awakened to it fully, that passive place feels like, I thought that was self-love. I thought that was loving towards me, that I was being loving towards me.
Yeah.
By putting myself there and that I wasn't being harmed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in that state of mind that you don't see it.
No.
At all.
No.
And how do you move somebody out of that?
How do you move somebody out of that? I mean, that's what the guides are saying here in this chapter, that is the hardest work for them. And that, you know, Myhanene, obviously he's saying, well, if failure was such a, if there was such thing as failure, this is where we'll find it. But his fate is such, he's like, failure is, you know, there's no such thing as failure in this work. So we are going to succeed. But, and you talk about dried up, withered channels. So I'm just wondering if that's the channels of, is it a channel of passion, of desire, sunken, withered, dried up natural channels. On page 148, 149, top 149. So that must be their desire, yeah, will, desire. And also, yeah, it's about learning to be self-responsible about the use of your will in harmony with God's laws. I guess at the end of it, Karen.
I was just going to add, yeah, I agree with everything you were saying, Virginia. I was going to add, just I feel there's a law of compensation issue, like on both sides, that by not engaging your will, you're missing out on positive compensation that you could accrue by actually using your will to do things like lovingly and things. So that's kind of one way you're missing out. And then the other way, you're also accruing corrective compensation because you're not using, like what you were saying, Virginia, you're not actively using your will and just allowing kind of negative things to happen to you, and you're not stopping negative things happening to other people. When there's a lack of love, you're just kind of avoiding it. So I feel there's like there's a lot of compensation accruing and a lot of loss of, I feel often we don't kind of contemplate how many good things could have happened if we had have taken a positive action. And I feel these people are missing out on a lot of positive things that could happen, and they're just stuck.
And also now I'm beginning to wonder, in the conscience talk that Mary and Jesus did, the conscience and then move on to forgiveness and repentance chapters, there was a lot of discussion for those who did nothing. Like there's compensation for not doing anything. And also I wonder, if you're passive and you're allowing things to happen, are you also then earning that compensation for the pain that then happened because you didn't say anything? I wonder if a portion of that becomes accountable to you as well.
Yeah, I think it would. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So if we were to work with somebody who has been passive, for example, if you ever get to talk to one of our parents, the three of us here I know of with passive parents, how would we start with them? Like if we had a chance to talk to them, what would we say about like coming out of that? Like, do we talk about what fears you have that's driving you, or creating opportunity to make them getting inspired to have something good happen? Like how do you do this? Selena? Oh, and then Judith.
Well, I think with my dad, what do you think mom's going to do to you? Like, are you so afraid of her disapproval that you wouldn't, because he did not like physical violence, and yet I know he didn't like it, and I know he knew in his heart it was wrong.
Yeah.
I knew it, and yet, but he was very afraid of his father, and his father was very violent. His mother was not. And he had just learned that. And did you think mom wouldn't love you anymore if you said, don't hit that kid? You know?
Right. What's the addiction? Because obviously addiction is then driving.
The addiction would just that disapproval, like just to get in the path of someone's rage.
Yeah.
They're going to turn that rage on you then maybe. And maybe that's what you're afraid of, is you would actually rather have that kid get hurt than have that rage directed at you. which is really pretty awful.
Yeah, that's a lot of fear.
Yeah, that's a lot of fear. Yeah, yeah.
Judith?
Like I remember actually telling him things that I knew about things that he had done to my sister. And I don't know if he just ignored it, or, you know, it was quite confronting. I think my mom is still alive, and she was like appalled that I told him.
Wow.
And yeah. And he even then, he just kind of, I don't even know if he really heard it.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't hear it. Like he couldn't, because he did nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Judith?
Yeah, I had a background similar to Virginia's too, with a really, you know, violent father and a passive mother. And my mother's passed, and I think it's like she's dealing with a lot of shame now, not speaking up, and
Okay, so shame will come up.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm very passive too. So when I looked at this, I was like, oh my God, that's me, you know.
Yeah.
And it starts to get very painful. And that's why I think you turn to, like, the laws are kind of pushing your buttons all the time to get you at least to start to feel something.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's not very positive. And then you get depressed, or you turn to, you know, alcohol or drugs or whatnot. And,
Yeah.
you know.
Huh.
Mhm.
So I
Other
get,
things.
if I were to, because considering like one of my parents, very passive, so obviously I must have some of those attitudes inside of myself. So if I am to start looking at this for myself, I'll probably then start with saying, I'll probably say, okay, God, show me areas in which I am passive. And then I'll probably trigger some anger, which will at least instill some movement. And then start to go, what are the fears or addictions driving that passivity? And see if that will get the conversation going. Because we'll have to investigate. I want to investigate now what, because I see myself as someone that's very, you know, kind of gung-ho and work on stuff, but I can relate to these spirits around me who wants to be passive. And it's like, oh, no. And there's some things I need to look at as well. So yeah, those could be good questions to start with. Selena, did you have a comment? No.
I guess what hurt me was the shame thing. I really, when my dad was diagnosed with cancer, I made a big effort to try. I just wanted to get to know him a little bit better, because he really didn't share much about himself, just to know who he was. And he did share some, but it was very, usually people kind of like to talk when people want them to, you know, but maybe the shame is what kept him. He just really didn't want to, or he didn't really, and maybe that comes from deep shame. I don't know.
Well, maybe
to not
passivity
want,
means you don't know who you are.
Yeah, you don't even know how to even, like I had to ask him very pointed questions, just so I just want to know you a little better. That's all. Like, you just never even talked to me. You were just passive. You didn't talk to us. You didn't anything. You weren't mean. You weren't anything, you know.
You're just not expressing your nature. So how are you going to know who you are? You literally are numb to yourself.
Yeah. So it really is very harmful to be passive. I think, I'm just starting to really feel that with him. Yeah.
Huh. So moving on from that, let's say you were in the hells and law of compensation, and you've now finished that off, and you're finally done with that phase, and you're at the top of first sphere, second sphere, and you're at that restful place, the first sign of what heaven can be like, which is where Vaughn is. So I can only imagine that I will want to take a breather at this beautiful place. So why is Aphraar being cautioned about not getting too comfortable there? And what is it that make you want to spend so much time there? Like, what is that about? Why would you, if you get to second sphere, want to take a break and rest? What do you think that's about? Virginia?
You might feel like you deserve it.
Oh, how?
And you're in a beautiful place. So like, why not just hang out here for a while and not keep moving forward?
Yeah. I can only imagine that the relief feels so good. I wonder if there's still some fears of like releasing that relief, like I'm finally done. I just want to rest. Karen?
Yeah, I feel it, yeah, it could be that people just get there and just want to rest. But it also, if you've had kind of a hard life and you've already gone through a lot of things, maybe you're just so happy to get to somewhere where you feel good and you just think, oh, this feels great, and you just kind of get content there. And I feel it's the same issue we were talking about with these other souls. It's desire. It's desire that will pull you up into the higher spheres, but you've got to have that desire, you've got to develop it. So I feel people that get stuck in the second sphere, maybe a similar issue, that they haven't yet developed their desire very strong, like they're still learning to develop that. Because I remember asking once a question to Jesus about, like, when people are at one with God, like I noticed in the Paget messages, some people seem to progress quite quickly through the higher spheres, and some people seem to just hang out like in the 8th or 9th sphere for ages. And I thought, once you'd removed all your injuries, why are people progressing differently? And his answer was that desire, that the people that had well-developed desire kept. So I think if you have that strong desire for God and you have, if you've developed that, I think that keeps you going. But if your desire is not developed, if things feel good, you can get, like Virginia said, it just feels restful and nice, and there's not much incentive to keep going.
Yeah. And so desire has to be, you can have a desire for God. You can have desire for, I feel like desire for God needs kind of like, I want to expand on it. It's not just enough for me to go, I want God. And it's like, well, but why? I feel like that seems to be something that define my desire, like to really clarify my desire. Could be, or maybe I need to develop a desire for God to begin with. Maybe that's something I need to have more of at this point. Like I want to be at one with God. I think because I'm seeing other benefits. I'm seeing that I'll no longer be sinning. I'm no longer causing harm to myself or others. And that's very attractive to me. I like the freedom that from that point on, I can create, desire, experiment, anything I want. But because I'm already in harmony with the laws, I'm only having fun. There's no pain, there's no damage being created. And to me, that's really attractive about being at one with God, more than God himself. So that's curious for me to go, well, that's my current motivation for wanting to be there. Which I guess is a type of love. It's like, I don't want to do damage. I don't want to harm anybody. And God seemed to have all the answers. So that seems to be an easier way to do things. It's, efficient. I don't know. What is that? Selena, do you have a comment?
Yeah, well, there's just so much to do. Like Vion even says, why would you need to go? There's so much to learn and do here. So God makes it really easy to be stuck there. Like, why would he do that? My granddaughter asked me the other day, she's concerned that there wasn't anything to do in heaven.
Right.
We just started talking about heaven. Well, there might not be anything to do there because she's likes all the stuff she's doing now. You know what, if I just, like, it was kind of an interesting question.
Okay.
From a little girl that's never been to church or anything, but we do talk about heaven and God and stuff. Yeah.
But look at how she's saying, I want something to do.
Yeah.
Is to do, not to just hang out and veg out. So that's really cool that we're born that way. But that, I guess desire you have to kind of fan it. You have to.
So it's not like you can't count on being bored.
No.
To develop a desire for God. And I'm just wondering if he planned it that way. Like you actually have to have a desire. You can't just do it because you got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not going to give you that opportunity.
So maybe when you know more, so for example, like now they're talking about, they're living on stars. And I'm going, what? Stars? Wait, what? So now my desire is being fanned, going, wait, you have homes on stars? What? I was so upset when I read that paragraph. I couldn't sleep that night. I was fuming. I was livid. Like it just got me so bothered. It triggered my feeling of low what? Like I was just upset. So I think we have to maybe deliberately and actively cultivate desire, knowing based on our current nature, because we're excited about some things, but not others. So we have to kind of manipulate it and go, fifth sphere, I wonder what I could be able to do when I'm in the fifth sphere. And then it kind of triggers your passion. And then maybe then you go into one, then you kind of leapfrog. But yeah, like how would you, Virginia, you had a comment?
Yes, just from listening to everyone, I just really feel that I think it's my addiction to comfort and people's addiction to comfort that kills desire.
Okay.
That's what suppresses desire.
Yeah.
Is our addiction to comfort. And I know for myself, I've been thinking about that from reading this and thinking, wow, yeah, giving up comfort and challenging that addiction is going to be tough.
Okay.
But I can see what it's doing as well with desire, and that it could very easily pull me into stagnation.
Yeah. And is there maybe a God's version of what comfort and nourishment means? Because nourishing and comfort has to be in harmony with God version and then not in harmony with God version. So there's got to be, like you said earlier, it feels like self-love. So what is that? How? Yeah, so those are good things to explore and kind of fuss about. That's when I start to get fussy because I'm trying to work it out. Why else do you feel like what Selena is saying, well, God did create second sphere and is very restful, which is kind of a nice train station with a garden. It's like take a stop, take a breather, enjoy the garden, and then get back on the train. It's probably what it looks like from God's perspective. But if we don't already have a strong desire pulling us on, we're going to want to stay there. And that is something to be cautioned against. Judith?
Well, isn't that the truth also about like the fifth and sixth sphere? When we reach perfection, people get stuck there.
Oh.
They basically learn all they can learn. It's not until you become one with God that you can really explore things.
Right. So if you're seeking perfection, then you can get stuck there. Again, it's based on what you're looking for, I guess.
You could probably get stuck anywhere in any sphere.
I can see the way I am right now. I can see that once I get to the eighth sphere, I'm probably going to hang out there for a bit and rest. I probably won't take the second sphere rest. I'll take it at 8. I can just feel it inside of myself. Now I'm no longer causing pain to anybody. I'm going to take a breather. So that could be somebody like me too. I can see that happening. Like, why would I want to go past this? But my guides would probably know how to hook me up again. Like, just keep.
You're saying that in the condition you are right now, but once you're in that other condition, you'll probably feel very differently.
Hopefully, because it does take a lot of passion to get to it. One intense passion. So, how do you feel? How can you motivate your desire to continue wanting to be at one with God? What lure can you start with for yourself? Like mine is that I will no longer be causing any damage or pain. That's very attractive for me. What would be yours? Why would you want to have a desire for one? It could be for God himself. Judith?
Yeah, I would say for God himself, because I don't feel like I desire God right now, and that's the problem. And I actually don't know God.
Yeah.
No, I mean, So I'm trying to switch to how do I start to want to know God? Because once we truly desire God, then things would go very quickly.
Oh yeah. Or even just some qualities of
Yeah.
being at one with God. Like for me, like I don't know about God himself, probably because of long word feeling, but I want some of the benefits that comes from it. I won't be causing any more harm. Well, I would like to go for that. So I'm kind of using a secondary desire to pull me along. And in the meantime, I'm getting to know God because through all of these books. And so that's slowly changing me to start to want to even be with God because I have all this hurt and all this other hurt I have, which is now being healed and corrected. So now I'm going, oh, God is not too bad. I can trust you. So that's slowly repairing the relationship. But you can use other things. Maybe you have a passion for wanting to create, say, good economies on the planet. And you're going, being at one with God could teach me how to have proper economy. That's a good one to go for. So you could probably use other channels to start just to get you going. I don't know. I'm a little tricky, so I'm like using tricks. Virginia, did you raise your hand? I don't remember. Somebody else now. Okay. So, well, we've hashed that out enough. Then there was also the conversation about, do you guys want to talk about the stars? Conversation? Yeah, okay. Well, then help me out. So page 144, 145. So from the material body of every star does there radiate an attenuated substance from which a series ascent of spiritual conditions is built up, forming the divinely majestic staircase linking heaven with heaven until the heaven of heavens is reached. Am I right then in surmising that in the intercourse of this life passage from star to star is possible? So, okay, what do you guys take from that phrase? From that paragraph, that conversation? Judith?
I'm thinking it's a metaphor. It's not exactly that you go to the stars, but aren't we a star?
Yeah, I think it's literal.
Oh.
Karen?
Yeah, I feel like it's trying to say that, yeah, there are so many different spiritual conditions, and God has prepared a physical location for all of those, like a spiritual physical location for all those different conditions. And so kind of giving an analogy, like look at how many stars there are.
Yeah.
And if you're saying that there's only, what did he say, he could count on his hands how many are like the earth. And so the rest of them are the different spiritual conditions, I interpreted it as.
So are you seeing that as literal? That
those
are
that people are literally living in these locations. Yeah.
Because I used to wonder why it's always bright. They're always talking about it's always bright. And I go, how come you don't get sunsets anymore? And now I'm going, well, you're literally on the sun. So, okay, that would explain it. So are they suggesting that, because, Myanene's home is obviously in the celestial spheres, but before that, the second sphere, third sphere, fourth sphere, are they saying that even that is on other planet or stars?
I think so.
Wow. Kind of blows you away a little bit.
Yeah.
What other opinions you guys have about that? Judith?
I agree with Karen. I think it's all different types of locations. There's more locations than the amount of stars. It's an infinity. So, and we can all take different steps to finally reach the final heaven.
And every step you take has an actual physical location.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
And there's something about the quality of the star itself that attenuates. I feel like, is it saying that you actually need that quality, the radiation, the rays that come of it to kind of give you energy to move you up? Like, is that what it means? Or is it just that it reflects each other? Or are you actually getting substance from it to pull you up and acclimatize you to that condition? Okay.
I think it just means that whatever your spiritual condition is, like your soul condition, you're then just drawn to whichever star matches that. And so it's like an attenuation, then you kind of attenuate to that location because of your soul condition.
Okay.
And yeah, because I think it says the rest in nuclei for varied grades of spiritual ascent.
Yeah.
So it's, they're just all the kind of just what we've learned about the spirit world. They're all just different locations, but it's just actually saying all the stars we can see, that's where people are actually living.
Selena?
Well, it's also confirmed, I think, in the first book, Through the Mists, when he asks about moving from one location to the next, and they say, well, it was so fast, you weren't really aware of it. So we'll just go do that again and slow it down, and you can see what's in between, and that we can actually be in the locations in between quite comfortably. But we generally don't hang out there, but they actually go there for a while.
So that means that,
like between locations, the darkness between locations, kind of like
the void of space.
Yeah, that's kind of what I interpreted from that. That's a space between planets, I guess.
Yeah.
The locations.
Virginia and then Judith. Do you remember, Virginia, what you wanted to say?
Sorry, I didn't have my hand. I like the idea that it is unique for everyone. It's a special place for everyone. And that they're all linked. So, and there's some comfort to me. Here we're going comfort again. But I find that comforting to know that it's all linked. Like you're never alone. It's your own special place, but you are not alone. You are connected still, and able to move forward always. So
somebody just have to think of you, and there'll be, a thought wave will come, and then they're like, "Yep, Virginia will have our own special planet.
Yeah,
we'll go hang out."
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, Judith.
Well, the interstellar barrier is actually on 145 in this book, so it's on the same. They talk about it here.
Yeah.
Just after,
And that is like, I'm assuming the
void.
Yeah. Okay. Because I think it comes up in the next chapter where somebody actually freezes Aphraar in the middle of space and go, there it is. I think that's coming out soon in the next chapter when I took a peek. Yeah. And also, Selena, you're saying it was in the first book as well, Through the Mist?
I don't remember. Maybe it is coming up. I just remembered that. That's all. It could be. I've read them so many times, I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it does aspire. It does create a desire in us to. I like how Myhanene, he talks about, here's the infinity of, like, you'll have your own star to live on. Hopefully not by yourself. That's pretty lonely. But then here are all these souls that are like withered away and stagnant on Earth condition. It kind of almost teasing them, going, but this is what you're missing out. You could be doing out all of those things. So it's exciting that it creates a desire and curiosity in us. Like, it definitely burned some kind of fire in my soul for sure. Definitely got me I'm pretty angst up about this topic. So something is still percolating. I just get mad. It's just so feisty. It's just so good. You can start to have self-approval and self-appreciation at some point. Like, oh, there I go. I'm mad. Things are going to happen now. Okay. So maybe it's something we can start asking our guides to say more about. Like, what are your homes? Like, where are your homes? And what does it look like, and show us. And what was it like when you were in the fifth sphere? And, you know, I don't think I can handle looking at a celestial sphere home right now. I'll probably just obliterate my brain. We have to go a little lower. Way back when you were in the fifth or fourth sphere, what did that look like, if you can remember? Just to inspire us. Okay, so moving on to other conversations. We could talk about the wheel of point 2 was the wheel of success, oftentimes of misfortune, had to be brought to a stand before you're made to change, where you can start the true career. Or we could talk about Myhanene himself, how he talks about, you know, that is well, it is well. Which of the two topics do you want to talk about? Judith?
I guess it as well.
It is well. You're interested in that one? Okay, let's talk about that. So what that is referring to is that after they took Dandy to Siamede's house, and that soul is finally sleeping and resting to transition to a permanent spirit life, they also saw the woman from the earlier chapter who was upset that she was going to die after childbirth and she was going to leave a child behind. But here Aphraar say, hey, wait a minute, I know this woman. That's her. She's finally moved over, has passed. And then I think Aphraar asked, what about the child? And then they were told, oh, the child is also here. And Myhanene had this response of, it is well. And there was something about that phrase that then Aphraar speaks about quite a while, like what that feels like to him when Myhanene says, it is well, that is well. There's something about the impact that has on him. And I'm trying to imagine what that must sound like, what that must look like. So what does it bring up for you when you read about that? What does Myhanene feels like to you, Selena?
Well, when he says it is, like, I think you would have said that if the child hadn't come. Like, he just has so much faith in God. It's all just well.
Okay.
Like maybe we're kind of sad for her that she can't bring her child, but if that's what needed to happen, according to the laws, it's what needed to happen, and that means it's well. So he has absolute faith in God and God's laws, I think.
Okay. Yeah. He has faith in God's laws that whatever God decide, the outcome can only be well.
Yes, and not even that God even made a specific decision, but the laws determined the outcome.
Oh.
So that, to me, more
okay.
So that the laws work perfectly, the laws cover everything, and they're always well. It's always the best outcome.
Wow.
That's how I think he feels.
Now, I wonder if you get there because you've been there long enough to then observe the outcome every time and then go, oh, look at that, that was a good outcome. So like the faith has to be from experience. Like
yeah,
had enough of that. But he seemed to have such joy, like the way Aphraar described it, like it's musical and it's this lightness to him, and there's things that moves on his soul that nobody else can even guess what's going on there.
It's like when Myhanene says it, you really believe it, that it is well. Even if to you it doesn't make sense, and maybe it doesn't even really feel that well.
No.
In your human understanding, but he is so, it just feels so, maybe it increases his faith just hearing him say that it's well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It brings delight to him. Like Myhanene feeling delight in that concept, or in whatever it is that he thinks is well. He's actually feeling a delight.
That it's just always well, like when God just does it well. God's laws are always perfect.
I'm really curious with how he got there. Like, what was your development like when you were working through your stuff, and how did you get to that? And is that part of your soul's nature, that your unique attributes? And like, and I'm really curious. It's like, how did you get to be like that? Okay, thank you. Others? Karen?
I find quite interesting what he's trying to convey here, Aphraar, about Myhanene, in just that, and I guess other celestial or other higher spirits as well, and just that, don't know how to explain it properly, but how he's trying to say it's the music and like it's not just what they say, they have these extra qualities about them with and he's trying to say they're not just like normal people, they do have angelic qualities, and it's the music, just the tone of it. So it seems to be all these extra, it just makes me think there must be all these extra qualities that we can gain, and so then it makes communication much more than words. It makes it like just the tone of the voice and things like that must impart something to the soul. Because he seems to go, like, there's quite a few paragraphs where he's talking about that, trying to say that these higher spirits have these extra qualities about them.
Is it from, what is it about One-Man that does that to you? Judith, do you want to go ahead first?
Well, I just feel it's like more details and more colors and more complexity to you. The more you learn and grow to become one towards God, you would become more complex and have more colors and details. I just remembered when I did the mediumship of someone's father that I've met before, met like a celestial spirit, was so like, oh my God, the details in his hands, the way his body is so formed. He couldn't believe it compared to himself. And so I assume that's, the voice would of course have more harmonies to it, maybe.
Now, are those your own qualities, your own soul quality that is beginning to be more and more expressed? Like, is this part of you that is awakened? Because that's how we are. We are like the highest creation of God. And so is that us or is it something about in One-Man that you receive something from God, and that is the one that changes you? Like, is this out going in going out? Which way is this?
I think it'd be more of us. But.
Okay. Julia?
Yeah, I would agree that it's really uncovering our own God-given qualities.
Okay.
And once you've worked through all your addictions and really just being the pure essence of who you're meant to be,
Okay.
that can be further developed.
I wonder if
just to think that's who we all are, but we're covered up a little bit. We got a little bit of mud on us.
When you receive God's love, it changes your soul. In however little ways that you have received God's love in that particular part, and especially if you let it develop and enhance, it changes your soul. So I wonder if there's kind of like some kind of a catalyst, some kind of a what's that word? Changing lead into gold. What's that word? Metamorphosis. That something about God's love changing your soul, and therefore taking that your own attributes into a whole other level of expression. I wonder if it magify it somehow, adds to it, fairy dust, something. Yeah, I feel like I'm being told somehow that the reception of God's love is not as part of that. So yeah, it could be your own attribute, but there's something about receiving God's love in that area that then enhances that quality. Okay. What else? What else can you say about what it's like to listen to Aphraar's attributes about Myhanene? Judith?
Well, just his incredible warmth and his, putting his arm around him all the time and
Yeah.
communicate with him silently. He'd just say it as well. And then at one point he'd say, we're not really saying anything to each other, but I know what he means, what he's telling me.
He uses silence well, doesn't he? Yeah. Just to draw it out. And he seems to be teasing. I feel like he keeps activating and provoking desires. Like you're not sedated around him. You're very agitated in some way. He just, I think in the Through the Mist, when Myhanene took Aphraar to the house, Aphraar couldn't even see his environment because he was distracted with Myhanene. When he's around, you're just distracted. And there's something about Aphraar noticing that Myhanene seems to be in some kind of a conversation with something or someone all the time. He seems to be aware of something else inside of his soul. Then there's this constant dialogue going on. And that part makes me actually jealous. I read that and I go, what? It makes me jealous. It's like he's having communion with something else. There's always something else that's moving through him. And that part makes me, it kind of triggers me a bit. Have you guys noticed that in the reading about him? Like, is he having a conversation with God? Is he receiving feelings from God? Like, is that Virginia?
I feel like it is God, that he is one with God, and that he is in that God-reliant state.
Right.
Where God is just part of his being, like every moment. And well, that must just be blissful. that in itself is motivating, right? That and motivates Aphraar because he sees the state that he's in, and that he has this guidance all the time, and that it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful state to be in.
It's like, well, what's he telling you now? Like, I want to say, well, what you just hear? What did he say? What did God just say to you? What? I want to know. What did you just tell you now? Like, what is this communion you're having over there? Share a little, will you? That's what I feel like saying. And Selena?
I really like how he, even though he's celestial and at one with God, the questions that he asks, like, well, why do you think that? Like, he's interested in what he thinks. I mean, he's so far ahead of him, and yet he wants to know what he thinks. Why do you like to hear me talk about God and Christ and love? Well, it's kind of obvious, but he wants to hear it in his words.
Wow.
And I just think that's very endearing. It's very loving. Like, I want to hear how you feel that. How do you see that? What kind of words would you use to describe that feeling? Yeah, and that really helps Aphraar really look into his soul to feel what he feels. And then, I just really like that. Like, he's such a good teacher. Yes. And he teaches by asking him questions about how do you feel? Like, a couple times here, he asks him, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you feel?
Very honoring of the other. Like, he honors the other person's journey.
Very much. Yes. Yeah. Like, I'd like to, I know the answers, but I'd like to hear them or see it through your eyes and hear it through your heart. Yeah.
And the way he takes the time, like, you're worth my time, you're worth all, I got nothing else more important to do than you right now. That's kind of the kind of word type right now, I would be so overwhelmed. Overwhelmed, like, oh yeah. I mean, he's probably around us right now, but I'm just like, okay, we just had a conversation about a book. And Now, what's interesting is that when Aphraar was in a physical level, I was going to say when he was alive, and I felt somebody going, that's not the right phrase. When Aphraar was in physical body, he didn't have much of a desire for God because he was turned off by religion. And yet, as soon as it passes, look at the way he talks about God. Like he just gets so overwhelmed. And it's like, how did that switches on? How did that happen? What happened to him? How is it that he maybe always had a desire, or he wants to know that God, which is that loving, is that what it is? That he's seeing attributes about God and is beginning to kind of fall in love with God? Like, Selena? No, okay. Karen?
I think no, in the physical life he did, because it has this quote here. It says, he says, sometimes in the lower life, I reached out in an endeavor to find it. Sorry, I maybe should read before that. It says, yes. I like to hear you speak of God and Christ and love. Yes. And then he says, do you? Why? And then Aphraar says, I seem to comprehend more of its sweetness and fullness when you were speaking. Sometimes in the lower life, I reached out in an endeavor to find it, but as a reality, it always evaded me.
Got it.
And so I feel like he did have it. He maybe just got a bit disillusioned with yes. religion, but I feel like he had it. That's why when he's found the truth about it, then he's really gravitated towards it.
I wonder if that was the sleep state then that helped continue developing that part of his nature, that when he come back to physical body, he was kind of like disillusioned and depressed. But in the sleep state, there was an opportunity to keep developing, because just as soon as it passed, he's just off on a rocket. And it's like, you don't just turn on that desire. So the sleep state must be where a lot of our nature is being developed in sleep state that we then forget when we wake up. And that's, yeah. Thank you for that, Karen. You're right. Like he did have the hunger for it, but there was nobody else to play that with. Okay. Wow. Okay. So how are we feeling? We feeling good? You want to chip away at one more topic, or are we feeling done? Virginia?
I just have a question. I was the second question that you posed for page 139.
Yeah.
Where it goes, the wheels of success, oftentimes of misfortune, have to be brought to a stand before they are made to revolve in the contrary, which is the true direction. So does that mean in success as well, that you're actually meant to go in the opposite direction? I'm confused by the wording there.
Yeah.
Some clarity would be great. I got confused on that.
Exactly. Like what I seem to be reading there is that, well, we're always on a wheel of success, whatever you want to call it. And then once you die, you realize that actually that was a wheel of misfortune. And now you're going to have to turn that off and go into the true career that you're supposed to go to. And whatever you thought you had to go for on earth were all of no use for your true career. That's what I seems to be hearing.
Okay, I see. So it's talking about like successes in life.
Which are not your true.
Does that mean we should not want to desire to be successful in life?
In harmony with God, exactly. Like what is?
Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like it just sounds like there's always this inversion happening to lead us to more.
True. So that's the question. It's like, what is the true career they're referring to? That we could be maybe embodying from now on, instead of having to run your whole life and only to die to go, wait, that was all pointless, now I got to turn it off, or go back to earth plane and try to get that success through to other people. Like if I were to embark on the true career from now on, what does that even mean? So ideas or comments about what does that paragraph mean to you? Karen?
I interpret it to mean, whatever kind of success or misfortune you've had on earth, like by earth standards, that's had to be kind of brought to a standstill, because when you're on earth, you've focused on what you're doing each day and things like that. And that part of your life has to kind of come to a standstill, and you have to adjust to the spirit life. Yes. And that's your true career and your true, finding your true thing. So I kind of interpret that paragraph just to be it's just a, like slowing down of like you're on a wheel and it just kind of slows down and stops, just so you can adjust to spirit life, and then you get moved.
But then we could maybe do that on earth. On earth itself, we can say, well, all these things we're doing that we think is important isn't. We're going to have to turn it off anyway. And maybe we could just adopt a true career from the get-go and not have to have that experience of the pain of like, was all of that for nothing? So like, what does the true career means here, you feel? Virginia? Oh, sorry, Judith first.
Okay. Living in your desires?
Living in your, okay, but no, we are living in our desire because we want earthly success.
Oh, but I mean, if you have a desire to, like a pure desire, living like in a pure desire to, and what you were meant to be doing, you could find that on earth as well. I mean, look at what Jesus and Mary are doing.
Right.
Look at what you're doing. Like, just that they're bringing truth. That is a pure desire.
Yeah. So
I see it as success. So I was kind of confused by this, thinking that do we truly not live this in our earthly physical form, or?
Really good questions. It's like but the way I look at it is like, if there's something I'm doing here that I'm trying to be successful at, only to get to the other side and realize that it was all wasted a mistake, well, I'd rather stop that now and just get on the real thing now and not have to have that experience of, oh, that was all for vain. I don't need to, because then you have to stop and reverse direction. I think that's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable even thinking about it now, never mind later. Karen?
I was thinking it could mean, like, say on earth you're a farmer. That's like a good profession. You're helping people and growing food. But when you get to the spirit world, there's no need to eat. So you're going to have to stop what you're doing and then start to do something different. So I feel it's kind of saying that as well. It's not saying things that you did on earth were necessary and were loving, but once you reach a spirit world, some of those things you can't continue to do. You need to adjust and do something different.
Okay, that's a good point. Some of it are things you do need to do because you're still on earth physical life and you got to take responsibility for survival, right? Okay. So what is the true career they're referring to here in spirit life? Once you stop the wheel, go in the other direction. Are they saying about you wanting to maybe have a desire to get to know about God's laws, or wanting to, like the Ladas group, they want to go help the earthbound spirits? That's a career. Like, is that what that means? Like Aphraar has a career, which is he wants to come back and spread the message. Karen?
Yeah, I feel it can be any of those. It could be anything, like anything that you're passionate about. And so I feel like we've got true kind of passions and desires in our personality. So anything aligned with that could be anything.
But I like the idea of there's another career waiting for you. Go hang out in second sphere for a bit, but you've got a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Selena.
I kind of like, though, like, even though Bayonne isn't interested really in progressing, like she doesn't seem to have a big desire to move from where she is.
Mm-hmm.
Her job was to nurture Dandy in his sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they only talk about it, but I thought, oh, that's so nice, because she didn't really got the chance to do that with her children. And now she gets to have a job kind of fill that nurturing role that she missed out on. And so she gets to, I just got a really nice vision of her sitting with him and loving him while he's sleeping. And, you know, he's probably in the first time in his life now sleeping and he's safe and there's somebody right there mothering him. And it's just, it was just a really lovely image. And so she has a career, even though she doesn't really want to engage any desires to move forward, she's still got something loving to do. You know, it's something that maybe will fill her with more desires later once she's kind of satisfied that.
That's true.
That desire, right? Yeah.
That's a lovely rephrase. And yeah, she seems to be like a foster parent.
Yeah.
In that sphere. Okay.
Yeah, because she actually tells Aphraar that he's coming, but then she isn't really involved in any of it.
Yeah.
She says, like, we are going to bring him here, and then she disappears. Yeah. But she reappears as his nurse, basically.
That's right.
Yeah. So that was her role. It's nice.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good place to call a natural end to the topic today.